So the tea is being served right now at the back. The third presentation which is there is of the Dean and Director of KJ Somaiya School of Education, Dr. Pooja Birwatker. She has pursued her postdoctoral research from the Homi Bhabha Science Education and has been a consultant with the Observer Research Foundation. Her areas of research include inquiry-based learning, diversity, and science education.
So good evening, and I represent the College of Education. This is the outline of my presentation. So I would just begin by talking about what is the nature of teacher education and the research within. So when we talk about teacher education, I would just want to break a stereotype that teacher education is not about only teaching and training teachers to go and teach out in the schools. So this is a very, very narrow version of teacher education. While we talk about teacher education, we just do not produce teachers. We're also talking about edupreneurs and entrepreneurs. We're also talking about people who run NGOs. We're also talking about curriculum developers, curriculum analysts, policy makers, content developers, content critiquers, and we're also talking about people who go out from our systems and become social reformers. But again, talking about teacher education as a very interdisciplinary domain, because it borrows and heavily, in fact, borrows from a lot of disciplines, and that is why the word education that is associated with it puts it in the center and the focus of an interdisciplinary nature. And while all these disciplines are contributing a lot of data and methodology sources to teacher education, which we are heavily capitalizing on, and at the same time bringing a lot of multiple angle to research in this field. But however, the past few decades, we've come to a realization that teacher education itself is a very intense and a very critical field of investigation, and therefore it should have a very separate and a distinct category altogether. Looking at the broad ways in which we categorize the researches that are being done in this area, we talk about research areas like teaching and learning, educational psychology, a very, very dominant category, curriculum, educational policies, special education, assessment and evaluation, and educational technology. So most of the researches that are done in the field of teacher education fall under these categories. Again, talking about what are the recent global trends in teacher education. So if you look at the figure there, while we are talking about all those broad categorizations of research in teacher education, we're also now looking at STEM and STEAM as a very upcoming area alongside with socio-emotional learning. We're talking about the Gen Z and the forthcoming generations, where we are talking about this concept of nano learning and bringing in these bite chunk size modules for bringing in information which is very, very distinct and specific. We're talking about inclusive classrooms. We're talking about gamification and immersive teaching, where we are bringing AI, AR, VR into the classrooms. We are talking about educational robotics. We are talking about connectivism, where we are talking about the digital world, the networks, and the real classrooms all merged together. We're talking about a very personalized, universally designed learning pathways which are catering to different distinct learners. And we have understood that when we talk about classrooms, be it in a kindergarten classroom or be it in higher education, classrooms are very, very heterogeneous. So therefore, the recent researchers have been talking about such personalized learning pathways. If you look at some of the thrust areas globally, we're talking about Finland, which has actually broken down the siloed, compartmentalized distinction between the subject areas and looking at a phenomena and a theme-based learning approach. We're talking about China, which is doing a major pioneer work in educational robotics. We're talking about Australia in differentiated instruction, Netherlands also talking about personalized learning approaches, Canada doing major researches in social emotional learning and STEM and STEAM education. And while we look at the present status of India, we are contributing and doing researches which I'm very proud of against all these domains. But again, bringing in context the national education policy, I would really want to highlight that it's been a couple of years since NEP has been brought in and it is in the implementation stage. But then research is the only thing that would give the kind of support and the kind of feedback that NEP requires, because the policy, I believe, is always in an evolution stage. So then looking at some of the thrust areas that NEP brings forth, we're looking at multilingualism, and therefore that happens to be now a very thrust area for teacher education. Looking at inclusive educational practices, looking at vocationalization right from the school, looking at assessment reforms where we're looking at assessments not merely grade-based, but we're looking at holistic assessments, looking at experiential learning experiences and competency learning outcome-based education, or looking at the integration of the IKS system or technology, or bringing in the continuous professional development. I think we need to have all these as the thrust areas for teacher education, especially in India. And also looking at the rural-urban divide, talking about the sustainable development goals, and also looking at our indigenous and very rich culturally relevant pedagogies, but also looking at the digital learning scenarios. In this context, I would also like to highlight that our college has been a PhD center since 2009, and there are 12 students who have been awarded with a PhD degree. Currently, we have, this is the timeline for the PhD enrollments under the SVU. So currently, we have 15 students who are working with us. The broad areas in which the students are working are artificial intelligence, design thinking, experiential learning, AR, VR, innovative pedagogies, universal design for learning, and socio-scientific issues. So these are some of the broad areas of doctoral research at KJ Somaiya College of Education. So I've just highlighted the areas in the titles. Going forward, I would be talking about the major projects, research projects that we are undertaking or we are proposing to undertake at KJ Somaiya College of Education. So the first project that has already been launched last year and it is entering the third phase is transforming the rural libraries into community-centric educational hubs. This is predominantly being done in the Kutch area. So if you can see, there is a highlight of the areas where we are going, in fact the villages where we are going. So Tera happens to be the village of Samisar. So what are the objectives that we are looking forward to? So we are looking at making these rural libraries as thriving centers for community-based education and development. So Somaiya Trust has taken up a lot of old heritage buildings in these villages and converted them into beautiful state-of-art libraries. In fact, if you have a chance to go, please go and visit the libraries. They are amazing. But at the same time, just building an infrastructure and improvising doesn't actually bring out the essence of a library. And libraries, we are looking at connections between the schools and those centers. We are looking at libraries as adult education centers. We are looking at libraries as a place where recreation, education, development, everything happens, and basically libraries as the hub and the focus of the villages. So therefore, looking at some of the things which are related to bringing in the communication skill development, but also looking at empowerment of the village adults, looking at teacher training in the villages. We have already started doing that. Looking as libraries as these multimedia centers, and also looking at the connections and the collaborations between the schools in the villages and the libraries under the Somaiya Vidyavihar Trust. So this is the phase one which has already been completed, where we looked at the library footfall, we looked at the relevance and the usage of the library by the village people. We looked at the primary and secondary education status in the villages. We looked at the academic achievements and the classroom ecology. We looked at the teachers and the local perspectives on education. So there were a lot of interactions that were done with the students, teachers, the survey of the primary schools, and lot of data which helped us to plan the second phase of the study. So these are some of the glimpses of our students, and if you can see the last two, these are the libraries. This is a library in Tera and Roha village. So this is the second phase which is already rolled out, that is the Shabd Shushti. This was basically a project or a phase which was taking on from the phase 1, which was talking about the limited foundational grammar skills and lack of engaging age-appropriate learning materials. The third phase will be continuing in the month of Feb, where our faculty member Dr. Manisha along with a group of students will be going to the village and continuing. So this is a longitudinal project which will go on for a couple of years. The second project that I want to talk about is a very recent project. In fact, it is in a very infancy stage. I think all of us at Somaiya are very well aware about the rooster system and the idea that we are not now limiting education, especially higher education, to be in these siloed compartments. So we are looking at some broad generic questions of what is it to be broadly educated? What is it when I talk about, when I say academic freedom, do we actually have academic freedom? Or what is it when we talk about these customizable learning pathways? Is it a possibility in the Indian scenario? So are we depriving students? Are we going against the very critical stance of NEP to bring in holistic multidisciplinary education? So therefore this project would be looking at the system that we are going to very soon bring forth in Somaiya across all the faculties and the departments, of bringing in a choice that the students can curate and tailor make their own learning trajectories. But however, this would also require a lot of research, because right now this is in a developmental stage, and in fact it would go on as a developmental stage for quite a long period of time. And for any system to become robust and dynamic, you need to have a lot of research support. So therefore, the focus of this research would be in terms of looking at the trends in the elective choices being made by the students, trying to understand what are the emerging interdisciplinary trends, looking at the disciplinary interactions, which would be many now, looking at comparative studies of systems which have already been doing this, and looking at the learnings from this and how do we go parallel with those systems. Looking at the operational concerns, of course, many of us right now also have these queries of how would the timetables work, or what would be the platform usability, or looking at the tech-based provisions. Looking at what would be institutional perspective in terms of the scalability of the system, looking at the resource optimization, looking at the policy impact, looking at the impact on the student learning and development in terms of the skills, academic performance, and the critical development of a lot of skills that we always wanted our higher education students to have, and looking at the long-term perspectives, where interestingly we will be looking at the employer's perspective in a few years to understand, is industry now happy with the products of higher education? Because there has always been a debate of industry not being very happy with the kind of products, and there is a kind of a divorce between what is happening at higher education and what is the demand of the industry requirement of specific skills. This is the last project I will be talking about. Again, this is a project that we have just conceptualized. Again, looking at the rural schools of Somaiya, where we are talking about a tribal school. We are looking at the latest school in Bhopal. We are looking at Sharda and Samirwadi, which are already established schools. And we are also looking at the school in our campus, that is Vinay Mandir. And we are looking at developing a curriculum framework, which is again phenomena and thematic based for all stages, right from the pre-primary to the secondary stage. And we're looking at some of the national and international best practices. Looking at designing not only the curriculum but also preparing the teachers. For this, the College of Education would be training the teachers alongside with a lot of experts. We have the Somaiya Center for Experiential Learning also joining in this for this venture, looking at what is the effectiveness of the teacher training programs, looking at the barriers in curriculum implementation, and also looking at the feedback loop. So this is the phase-wise, right now conceptualized trajectory of the project. But again, this will also be a longitudinal project. And these are some of the thrust areas for our UG research projects, and these are some of the thrust areas for our PG research projects. So our PG research projects are talking about educational management and leadership. Research happens to be a compulsory component across all the 6 programs which are offered by College of Education. This is the faculty research profile. We are 8 of us, out of which 6 are having a PhD qualification, 2 are on the verge of completion. There are 4 guides and 2 more in the pipeline. This is the faculty engagement in terms of the paper presentations, etc. And this is the way forward of what we look forward. We've just submitted a research project to ICSSR, again based on Kutch, looking forward to its acceptance, recruiting RTAs, looking for filling up 9 vacant positions, but this time heavily praying and believing that we will get full-time researchers, looking at socio-emotional learning project as a curriculum as well as a research project at UG level, and also looking at some kind of collaborations at the interdisciplinary level across Somaiya Vidyavihar institutions. Thank you. Uh, 15 are enrolled, sir. So 12 PhDs already under Mumbai University. Yes.
Of course, for the last 10 years in this country, we have been talking about national education policy. You have also projected that. Are you doing some research on this national education policy 2020?
Okay, sir.
Some research. Don't say about implementation. You are all doing it. That's a different thing. Research.
So, sir, we are looking at innovative pedagogies as projected by National Education Policy. So, we are looking at design thinking, which National Education Policy does talk about. So, we have students doing these design thinking projects.
This policy talks about all these things. But have you looked at it as a policy document? Have you critiqued this national education policy document?
I have, in fact.
Not you. I am asking your institution.
Not as a research, but yes, that's a good.
Why we are not just looking at as a research possibility?
It is
because the implementation we are all doing. We are bound to. We are doing it. So it's our institution. But there is a severe criticism that implementation of this in specific areas, in specific disciplines, in domains, it lacks rigor. For example, in order to study a particular subject from the university, to get a master, once you get a master's degree, you are considered as the master in that subject. But to get such education, the NEP document is some sort of a block, stumbling block. That's what rigor, some of the institutions which are doing rigorous higher education and research, they are telling that as a policy document, this lacks rigor when it comes to not deep learning in the modern sense of the word, deep understanding of the subject.
So personally, though of course not as a research, but personally I do agree with you. There are a lot of things, when the draft of the NEP came, there were a lot of personal feedbacks that we generated. We also passed it across, especially I may take a liberty to talk about the instruction in the mother tongue, and I think we need a lot of researchers to see how far would it take us if we provide especially higher education in the mother tongue, and are we equipped for that? So I think that is my biggest and my most basic concern with the policy, and also looking at the kind of envisioning that the policy has brought in, especially for the school curriculum, because the draft of the school curriculum came, and I happened to look at the draft, and I was very thrilled to see that the draft was giving the kind of academic freedom that we are looking at SVU, where a economic student could do a biology course and a math student could take something in music. And but unfortunately, when the draft came as a final document, I saw the same structure with a little bit of tweaking here and there, the same structure with the coaching culture again being very dominant. So then again, this is a very big question of the translations of what NEP had talked about, the drafts talking about, and the final outcome.
My question is, of course, you are thinking about 9 vacant positions of PhD and all that. Of course, as a higher education institution, we have to research at the policy documents also.
Yes.
It is for us to provide. Of course, it's research, but as policy documents also, you should
Yes,
definitely
definitely.
do research.
Definitely.
That's my point.
Right now, we went to 3, Roha, Tera, and Kotri. And the others, they went to the schools. But Roha, Tera, and Kotri.
Dr. Pooja, here. Two questions, or rather a proposal for a collaboration. So recently we had a visitor from Open University, UK. And I was very impressed that from 1967, they have been researching how do students in distance learning context learn. And they claim that they have some of the best modules for distance learners, which would allow even the dumbest distance learner to really have a good learning from their module throughout our research. Now we have a situation where many of my faculty complain about the lack of reading ability, patience to read, attention of the Gen Z, and you pointed that out. Shouldn't we be really doing now research on what kind of tools and techniques are really most impactful with Gen Z? So if there is a project as a business school, we will be very keen to collaborate with you. The second one is that in the business school, we have actually launched a project which is what are the attributes of a great influential teacher. This is modeled after Google had a project about 15 years ago called Project Oxygen, which asked the question, are managers important? If managers are important, what are the attributes of a manager? And they came up with 8 attributes, which are then used to actually as a feedback mechanism for the manager. So I want to really do that. And so there is a team that has been working on it from an analytics team. Again, I think an area where we should really seek some input from you on how do we come up
Definitely,
with that.
sir. So, sir, answering your first question where you talked about the Gen Z, it's a very interesting area of research which is emerging in the field of nano learning. Just like we have nanotechnology, it is talking about nano learning, and it is talking about these chunk-sized, bite-sized learning modules, which are probably like 2 and 5 minutes. And I was reading some of the researches, and they were talking about taking examples from TikTok and how, TikTok has been a very influential platform. And then, doing something in education which is based on the TikTok model to bring in these very, very minuscule micro learning segments, because
So
that
what I would
is the
make-
impatient generation.
Interest of time, maybe we should actually hold a
Yes,
workshop where
then
we
that.
actually look at all this and take away, and maybe even a faculty development program
Yes.
which specifically aims at how do we teach in this current context of very
Yes.
short attention span.
Thank you, sir. Yes, definitely. One question.
Okay, go for it. I'm asking this question based on my experience since last 10 to 15 years as a teacher. I completed my graduation in past course. Means I had the physics, chemistry, math, all the subjects. Depending upon my interest or some teacher's influence, the many of us chooses some subject and finally went to the masters. Now, when I start teaching, the past course students have all the 3 subjects equally importance. They give weightage to each subject very well. Then, when I interact with the honors students, like I'm talking about physics honors students, they sit in physics class quite well, but when it goes to the mathematics or any other which is not the subject of their honors, they say it is, I'm from physics honors, why I should give my interest to the either chemistry or to mathematics. Now we have the NEP, where the major is a one course, there's a minor, and there are a few more courses which are faltu. So the in major people comes, let's say, a good number, but the for minor, they say, it is a minor, we do not have to come to the class. And for the other courses, which is a value added or something different, the students are it is posed to them, but they are not interested in reading those things. So this terminology, which is from past course to this major and minors, how the students' mentality is towards the learning is changing. This is also we should think on this.
So I think, sir, this is also to do a lot with the way we have groomed our education system since the past 75 years plus, where we have given a lot of fuel to this compartmentalization. So much so that it is ingrained in our systems that we mentally do the discipline segregation very fast. This wouldn't change just like evolution. It will be a very slow change. But I would say that if we experiment this in SVU, and even if 5% students, 10% students choose the electives that they want to do it out of their choice and pursue, I think it would be a victory for us. I agree that getting these systems as a very established and successful systems would take probably as many years as it took to erect our higher education and secondary systems post the colonial phase. So probably, this would require a lot many years to finally see some kind of a success. But very right that only when we partner with the industries and we look at the scenarios at the present and we make the generations understand. But again, I see it as a Herculean task. So we have to really, pull up our socks to look into how do we envision a future. I think NEP has sort of somewhere, given us a very dictatorial statement that this has to be done. So once, you have such kind of critiquing of the system which comes in the form of a policy, though may not be completely in vision with what is the requirement of the country locally and globally, but of course we do have some kind of a support and a kind of an awakening. So I think awakening is always the beginning of a change.
Thank you, madam.
Thanks.
Thank you. This one, sir.
Like I said, education is like the center. Yeah.
I want to I'll keep it short and just quickly track back to Dr. Raman's point. And I also deal with some Gen Alpha people. And as we enter the age of Reels and TikTok, the attention span is going down. And you spoke about nano learning. I'm wondering if you think there is any scope for thinking about how practices such as mindfulness or breath work could actually, be tested and tried among students to see if that helps with attention span, if that helps with, if that's the kind of research that you'd like to collaborate on with the Faculty of Dharma Studies, especially Yoga Studies faculty, I'd really appreciate it.
I think definitely, because we are looking at social emotional learning. I wouldn't say mindfulness comes as a part of it, but yes, it both go hand in hand. So definitely, yes. It could, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.